Okay, I was, reading. You were telling me that you were at the broadcasting. What do you call it? Boot camp.
Yes.
Yeah. Just tell me a little bit about what you're doing there. I thought it was a cool sounding thing.
Yeah. Well, this is the fifth year that we've had it, and it's NFL players who want to go into broadcasting or think they want to go into broadcasting, and usually it's about a class of 24. Two-thirds of current players who are nearing the end of their careers, and the remainder of recently retired NFL players. Because of the lockout, we had to have just retired players, recently retired players. So we had Amani Toomer, Dan Klecko, John Fina, some others that were decent players. So we had 16 of them. That was up at NFL Films in Philadelphia.
Okay. So, like, what are some of the things you guys do? Do you get
We give them 4 regiments. We give them set taping as if they're on the Fox pregame show or the CBS pregame show. We have James Brown and Kurt Menefee come in, and we divide the group, and they go on set, and they have a certain subject they have to talk about. There's 5 different subjects. They don't know which one they're going to have to talk about. They have to prepare for all of them. They do set taping. Then they do a game analyst role.
Right. Okay.
And we have such play-by-play announcers as Kenny Albert, who's the number 2 at Fox. He comes in, and we have major producers that come in and do it. So they do that. And then we do a local emphasis, whereas if they're the local sports director, they have to learn how to use the teleprompter, write their own script, do the teleprompter, and then also they go off-site to a sports authority and have to do a stand-up interview with one of the other players in reverse roles.
It's kind of like almost like a sideline reporting type
gig.
Well,
on off-site, as if it's during the local newscast and sportscast, and they say, now we're going to go out to the sports authority where Bret McCormick is to talk about the NFL's initiative to use pads.
Okay. All right. So when you think of broadcasting, I think a lot of people think of just the guys on TV in the booth, but you're kind of preparing them for a lot of different things.
There's only 17 analysts for the major networks of NFL games, and these people are not going to walk into a network job. Very rarely does that happen. You have to work your way up to that.
Okay.
So what we emphasize is with the vast number of conference football networks that are being put together, the Big Ten network, we have people in from the Big Ten network. The Pac-12 is beginning a network in a year.
Okay.
Even the University of Texas has their own network in conjunction with ESPN. So we try to get them in a position to start at the local level, get your reps in just like you were an athlete, and get better, hone your skill, and then kind of move up the ladder.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say are some of the issues that former players run into when they're doing these type of things? What maybe some of the things they struggle with?
They struggle with the amount of preparation that is involved. They at the end of these, and this is the 5th year, they all say they didn't realize how much prep went into being a sportscaster, whether or not it's a game or a studio analyst or anything like that. And so the very good thing is that these athletes have been coached all their lives. So we have faculty members from the industry, and they're very open to criticism. The first night we do our version of American Idol off the studio analyst role. They have to go up in a chair in front. It's thrown up on the screen for everybody to see what they did that afternoon with either James Brown or Kurt Menefee, and then it's critiqued by 3 NFL executives, major executives, and so it's a humbling experience.
Yeah.
But we've also found that when these athletes usually start locally, is that everybody tells them how good they are.
Right.
When they really maybe aren't that good that need to hone it.
Right.
And so the feedback we get from the athletes are that they want criticism, they want to know what to do better. And a lot of these players, either active in most years or inactive, they've done local radio, done some interviews, they've tinkered with it, but they really don't know the extent of it.
Right. What would you say are some of the requisites, like not just for a player, but for anybody that would want to get into like broadcasting games or maybe doing radio? I mean, I think you have to have a good voice, but there's probably a lot more to it than just that.
Well, you have to realize there's a lot more prep involved than you might think. You just can't be a sports fan to do that. You have to, just like anything else, you have to do your research. You have to develop contacts. You have to make a judgment of whether or not you're going to try and break in by being sensational, or if you're going to try to build credibility. The things that journalism should be, we try to teach, and by that I mean that you have to understand what the industry's undergoing right now, which I'm sure you do, and that is that it's going toward the internet. Newspapers as we knew them 15 years ago, they're not happening. And there probably always will be newspapers, but there'll be different versions of it. You'll probably see it on your television screen. So they have to understand that aspect of it, where the industry is going. And sometimes or most of the times, they haven't even thought of these types of different ingredients into it.
Right. I think that's kind of interesting what you were saying earlier. I think sensational or credibility, it's kind of like you have to develop a personality, basically, is what has to happen.
Well, we tell them they have to be themselves.
Right. And
this should be fun. This should not be work in the sense of aggravation. If they aren't enjoying this after they go through these different procedures, then maybe they've learned something. Maybe this isn't for them.
Right.
But it's an interesting industry for them to get into, and particularly at this time, because they would get their foot in the door because of their name or their background.
Right.
But to stay in the industry, they have to be prepped, and they have to know what to have. We give them examples, and I won't give the names right now, of some big-name athletes that got their foot in the door because they were a big name, but they're no longer with the networks because they just didn't sustain themselves. They didn't put in the work. They didn't do the preparation, whatever it might be.
Right. Like with the Panthers, I think people around here, myself included, watch the Panthers. We seem to have, with Fox, we seem to have the same couple guys each year. So is it like, is that kind of like a regional thing, or has each team got kind of like a little crew, or, how's that work?
No, it's more regional. It depends where the actual game and how big of a market it's going to go to. For instance, Fox or CBS has 6 or 7 regular crews, depending upon the number of games that they have each weekend. They could have as little as few as 5 games, as many as 8 games during the season. So they have to have these crews, and they assign each of the games to a portion of the country, and they basically the number 1 crew will go to the doubleheader game that is going to the most part of the country. The number 2 crew might go to the largest game in the early time, the 1 o'clock time.
Right.
It might be going to 55% of the nation versus a doubleheader game that's going to 85% of the nation.
Okay.
So they kind of do it that way. And the Panthers, the last couple of years, have struggled a little bit. So they're not as likely to go to a large market.
Right.
And so they're not as likely to get the bigger name crews.
Right. Okay. I always thought it was kind of interesting that they named the team Carolina. Do you think that had and you may or may not know about this, do you think that had anything to do with maybe creating the image of a broader audience or relating to more area, I guess?
No, it was a very deliberate thing to call Carolina. Right. And obviously, geographically, they're not that far from South Carolina.
Right.
They played their first year
Clemson.
Clemson.
That's right.
I know that they think of Wilmington and Raleigh as part of their market.
Right.
Historically, as you may be aware, the Washington professional teams claimed through Virginia down into the Carolinas. That's why you still get blacked out of some Washington National games, oddly enough, or Redskins games. But so the Carolina Panthers, when they came into existence, they definitely wanted to be more than just a Charlotte team.
Yeah, kind of claim that, stake that claim to that area. Yeah. Okay. And when Panthers games are shown in Wilmington, how does that work out? Is that Fox negotiating with the NFL for all of its affiliates, or is it like a particular regional thing?
No, Fox has all the NFC games, home games, unless they're playing interconference. It's dictated by which network or which team, AFC or an NFC, is the visiting team. Now we're talking Sunday afternoon.
Right.
So CBS has all the AFC games, and Fox has all the NFC games on Sunday afternoon.
Okay. And then Mondays and Thursdays, of course, being a little different.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. And you mentioned TV blackouts. You hear about that sometimes, and I always kind of wonder about that. Is that sort of based on sold tickets, or it's not based on how many people show up? Obviously, it's
based on sold tickets. Basically, you're supposed to be sold out 72 hours in advance.
Okay.
Right. To lift the blackout, and it's a philosophical debate of the difference between showing a game for free that isn't sold out and wanting to have as many people in the stands as possible.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's been a philosophy that's been alive for 40 years, since the 70s and late 60s of Commissioner Rozelle. And so basically the league thinks, and has for decades, that you don't want a studio show. You want a full-packed stadium, because that will generate excitement and convey itself over the television. So you want to have a packed stadium is the bottom line, along with good television. And the league is coming off some record numbers last year, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that they're anxious to get the labor dispute finished, and it's not to miss out on the momentum they had last year. Right.
And I definitely got a few questions regarding that in a little bit, but just wanted to talk about a few other things. I was talking to Chuck about instant replay. He's been involved with with the Broncos and working in that. Were you involved with that, with the TV aspect of it? Because I think it's one of the best things that's come around.
I was involved in the early years of the different forms of instant replay. I was a point person with the television networks because we're using their cameras basically.
Right.
So I would do that, and I set up a system that there was a person, one of the four people in the replay booth is called a communicator. And he has a telephone line down to the TV truck so that he can help the TV truck understand what's going on.
Okay.
So yes, I've been involved in.
Yeah, so those guys in the truck, are they kind of oblivious to the action of the game, or I guess they really can't be. I would wonder if they would be worried more about the production though, instead of maybe down to down.
Well, no, they're
got to be probably.
They're very much involved in instant replay, and one of the terms that is used is empty the bucket. In other words, the referees want the television networks to show them all the replays they have, empty the bucket. And the TV networks never wants to do a game and then have a local newspaper picture or some film crew come up with a different angle. Afterwards, it showed something different when they might have had the replay and didn't show it. So the networks have been very cooperative in making this happen, and obviously, not obviously, but I think instant replay is a great credit to the game. And
I would think that emptying the bucket helps them maintain their credibility and that type of thing.
The officials do not want to find out the next day that they were wrong.
Right.
They'd rather correct something. They're all human, obviously. They want to correct something when they can.
Okay, and then another one I was wondering about, which I think is another great advent that maybe some other sports, I don't know if they would need it as much, but I love the yellow line for the first down marker.
Yeah.
Was that something that you were also involved with? Or?
Well, to the extent that ESPN came to the NFL with the idea.
Okay.
Well, it was actually an independent company that does innovations, and we had to go through a process of testing it before we would allow it to happen.
Right.
And one of the emphasis is that it is not official, and you'll hear announcers to
Right.
this day say that it's not an official line. It might be off a couple inches, which kind of saves everybody.
Yeah.
But it's a great thing. One thing about the NFL is, as traditional as it is, it hasn't been afraid for change and to add things over the years, and I think that's a very good reason why it's been somewhat successful on television.
Yeah, and I know, looking on the internet, just doing my homework, I noticed you had been in London and speaking with a lot of groups that were more familiar with soccer, and they were, I think, a little bit envious that the NFL had kind of taken the chance to do these types of things.
Yes, it was interesting. It's been about 3 years now since I spoke in London at a couple of universities, and soccer, which is the world's most favorite sport, is number one, no doubt about it. And what I was saying was that the things that the NFL has done may not apply to soccer,
right.
and it wouldn't be appropriate for me from a different sport to say what's good for their sport. However, having said all that, instant replay, some of the graphics that you see now on television, some of the camera angles for soccer that you see, you've seen that they've evolved over the years to be probably a better broadcast than it used to be.
Yeah.